We are live again, episode 4. I'm Anubix. Pass it to my, what is that, left? Michael, go ahead.
Hello, everybody. My name is Michael, and I am glad to be here.
What's up, guys? I'm Jesse Bentley, aka Sird, and yeah, let's do it.
Nice. All right, first and foremost, as we're going over some of the talking points, one thing I did want to jump into was um, Microsoft and their new models they're working on. Um, what do you guys think about that? Have you guys even heard about it?
I had seen it prior to you mentioning it, but I hadn't looked into it before tonight. And I'm just seeing the early benchmarks that are out. And as I was saying before we actually started, depending on how long they were worked on this, now that they're competing with some of Anthropic's earlier models like Sonnet, I'm curious to see how it goes, where they're throwing kind of like Michael was saying earlier, they're throwing a bunch of stuff against the wall to see what sticks.
So yeah, I've seen some interviews with the guy named is Mustafa Suleiman. Mustafa Suleiman, he's the CEO of Microsoft AI, and he's been there for like going on 2 years. And basically, he actually came from Google's DeepMind, right? So he's like he's brilliant as an individual. And there's been some rumors that he has never really been happy with Microsoft using third parties like OpenAI, even though Microsoft had a deal with them. Anthropic. He just wants Microsoft to do their own thing. And he's a big believer in the superintelligence, the AGI. So he's driving all of this behind the scenes. And, the criticism is going to be that we still don't know enough about AI and human consciousness to say that all this money being invested towards superintelligence is a good idea. But on the positive side, right, the side where we can say, okay, there's some benefit for me and you, Jesse, Anubix, all of us, is that at least there's going to be some fallout here where we're going to have local AI models that are more competent, and we're going to have better tools, presumably, here in the near future.
I noticed one thing on their write-up for it. It's actually showing that interacting with Microsoft tools and applications, it's at 10x plus lower token usage, which that's really impressive optimization.
Now, with the token use, that I've been looking into that quite a bit because I use these particular tool sets that track tokens, and everybody's talking about token maxing and how companies are on the verge of going bankrupt, because of the token costs. And the thing of it is with Microsoft's models is that they're going to have lower token costs because they're taking a different approach with respect to these frontier models that are hosted in the cloud vis-a-vis ChatGPT, Claude, and Gemini. And so, 10x is impressive. But I think, as we said in the last podcast, we're going to see a much more concerted improvement when we're looking at local models.
All right. One thing I did see just right now, I was looking at, I don't know if you guys are privy to, but Google laid some folks off. One group in particular was their threat intel group, among a couple other groups, mainly Google Cloud, and they said some were affected at Mandiant, I guess the cybersecurity company they bought a while back. Do we think this has anything to do with more AI-based characteristics within that vertical, or is it just a coincidence?
I could definitely see it on the threat intel side because something I've really been noticing looking at like upcoming training webinars, things like that through even anti-siphon training is a great example. More and more people are trying to figure out how to efficiently do threat intel, or fully automated with AI pipelines. So if Google's figured that out in-house, I could see that taking over.
Well, the major thing that I've heard from very consistently is that where you look at Amazon or Microsoft, but here Google, and I'm surprised by Google, but it's like they need more money to fund AI. Now, this might be naive of me, but I'm like, really, is laying off that many people going to get you that much more money for AI? You know, because you're looking at trying to raise hundreds of millions, and in some cases a few billion, for more data centers, for more compute. And the narrative coming out of these companies is that we have to shed our workforce because the processors are going to be much more of a durable cost that we can control versus the costs of maintaining humans in the mix.
Correct me if I'm wrong too. I know last year Google had a layoff of, it was a large number, but it was specifically their user experience side. And I think like the teams that were let go were focused on more of like the support side. So I think maybe Google Intelligence support systems is the replacement for that. So I wonder if that is the driving factor, cost savings versus tooling replacing their replacements.
Interesting. I mean, realistically, unless you have some insider knowledge that we're not privy to, I mean, you never really know, right? But I just thought it was interesting, so to speak. Along with what else did it say? It said something on the lines of also following that trend was AI. Also following the AI trend was Meta. So Meta laid off about 10% of their staff last month, while others, Coinbase, Block, use AI as justification for the cuts. And then also that Cloudflare layoff.
They actually
1,100
released
individuals.
A statement in theirs. They said it was in preparation for the agentic AI era. That was Cloudflare's statement.
Yeah, exactly. Of the 1,100 individuals.
So
That's crazy, man.
Because of AI.
I mean, at least they kept it honest, right?
And I've swung back and forth on it. I was skeptical that the narrative about AI to lay people off was the real story, but I'm starting to see that there is, at least in the minds of some, a real opportunity if you can get agentic AI to work. I mean, just think about it. If you can have fewer engineers and even non-engineers for a fraction of the salary, so instead of paying an engineer $300,000 a year, you could pay somebody $50,000 a year, and they can do the work of 4 or 5 engineers at $300,000 a year each. I mean, that's a huge win for a company. And some people are like, from a business side, see, engineers don't always understand where business people come from. Business people, some of them, many of them, they like to take risks, and they'll take a risk, even if it's going to fail. They're like, you know what? Let's bet the house. It's kind of like gambling. And if we can win big. And if we lose, well, it's not going to be that bad. We got contingencies, right? So I think that's driving a lot of this.
It's the difference in qualitative versus quantitative business analysis or risk assessments.
So the skinny hunters that you were speaking
Shiny
to so much, shiny hunters, skinny hunters, shiny hunters that you're speaking to multiple times this week. I'm looking at them, or not them, but another post that was talking about how
you lost audio.
Can you hear me now?
You're good.
Awesome. All right, where did I lay off? Did I talk about the threat group with Google yet?
You didn't mention Google. You mentioned the
Okay,
name and then went silent on us.
gotcha. So I was reading this other article just right now about Google Mandiant says Shiny Hunters ran an active extortion campaign targeting Oracle through PeopleSoft. So with the timing, now seeing this, like, does that change anybody's opinion, answer, thought process?
Uh, the more I look into the group, the more I've been impressed with just how long they've went on and not got anyone arrested. But something else to note with the Oracle one, it's their very first use of a 0-day. So now we realize they have 0-day capabilities, which is slightly more terrifying.
Well, I think it's just going to be, par for the course with computer technology in general. I have this thesis and a 3-hour video to back it up about, just the fundamental insecurity of original computer technology. And that's not a bad thing. But I think just as we increase the amount of code in circulation, the number of permutations in the range of exploits that we can expect is only going to increase.
Also, to touch on that as well, we don't know the extent of that because it was an RCE. It was 100 instances or 300 vulnerable instances, and we don't know how many companies yet were hit across those instances. And talking about the previous layoffs, guess what group actually discovered this? Google Threat Intel that are being laid off.
Hey, it's almost like they're saying, "Hey, you're finding out too much stuff here. Let's just shut that down."
We're going to be a conspiracy theory podcast now.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, man, this is like Skunkworks 2.0 real quick. No, I mean, again, just like at least for me, I like to try to like stack my information, right? Like, and always be open to new information, right? Of course, you always have to go and validate and make sure that the source of the information is legit. But I mean, I'm always open to interpretation, right? And I think with there is a sense of too much information, right? But also, you never want to kind of close that door and say, well, I got all my bullet points I need. I don't think I can drill down anymore. No, you can always drill down, and you can always new information will surface, and you would have to weigh that against the previous information, and then see, hey, am I going in a different way, or am I digging down deeper on what I already know? But other than that, I mean, again, just lining all these key things up and seeing how these trends go in and out, and build back up, and then just deteriorate over time, just like a lot of these companies, right? But again, now walking through kind of the Claude path to get to the Architect Foundational cert, I'm really starting to feel like it's that old school Windows thing I was saying, like how Microsoft did all the they had their whole cert rotation where like you had to have that cert. Like I feel like this is round number 2 just with AI. So I don't know if you guys look more into that, but are you thinking about looking at the course, taking the course? What's your thoughts on it?
Well, I'm definitely going to look into trying to acquire the certifications. So yes, I came up during an era where there was a lot of debate about certifications, and it hasn't changed since then. Employers, they want to defer to people that got certifications because it's easier for HR and other decision makers to say, well, if that person didn't work out, it wasn't a gut decision and it wasn't our choice, or it wasn't our fault. They had the certifications, and so they seem like the safe choice. So I understand it from that standpoint. The old school technology people prior to me, they would say that certifications don't prove that you can do the job. And they're right about that. But at the same time, I have developed a different point of view than what they say. And that is that people should get certifications if they can, because what it does is it helps us all have a common vocabulary. It helps us all see things in the same way, in that when we describe elements and matters in technology. So here with AI, I mean, there's so much out there about AI, and I think Anthropic putting this out there, even with whatever their agenda is, right, it's still going to be beneficial more than it's going to be a detriment.
I think the common vocabulary thing is one of the biggest points of that, because especially in, say, coding, for instance, communication in very large code bases, very important. And if you're using different vocabulary, trying to identify the same thing, it just creates a headache. My example would be went from doing networking in the military to networking in a Fortune 100 company. Different vocabulary, both Cisco environments, absolute train wreck to figure out. Then got my CCNA at the very beginning, got some generic vocabulary, started talking to the architects and be like, do you mean this? And then it started making sense. So the military terminology was old school guys using slang and trying to pass that on to kids. And yeah. And I think that creating that common vocabulary and the common understanding and methodologies behind things, it's like the A+ to me. I thought that was like one of the most useless certs in existence, but it teaches people a generic troubleshooting methodology. So that if you walk up to some help desk agent, senior tech, you can be like, I did this route, what am I missing? And at least gave you somewhere to start.
Yeah. So the breakdown of that course has 5 different domains: agentic architecture, cloud code config, prompt engineering and structured output, tool design, MCP integration, and context and reliability. So the way I looked at it was, regardless of whatever the objective was, just taking these core concepts, you can always understand them and then apply them to other frontier models or even local models, but I thought it, regardless of whatever, the intent was, it would just be good to look over the course, even if you didn't want to sit for the exam, but still take the work, take the information, understand it, and then kind of, build your own sandbox and do your own things with it. Even though things might seem useless, if you can take that information and apply it somewhere else, I mean, I think that's a net positive on from my perspective.
And plus, I'm Oracle AI certified. And even though I was able to go through that certification course very, very easily, relatively speaking, it was still challenging. And the only benefit I had, going into it is I had already studied AI, but I studied AI in a much more unstructured way, right? I just read all these articles and I watched these videos, but I was able to use a lot of that information in the Oracle AI certification course in order to go through it more easily. But going through the Oracle AI certification course, right, it was much more structured. And it was structured in a way where I could now, after going through that course, I can explain AI to just about anyone. And I could explain it to laymen, because a lot of lay people ask me about AI all the time because they know I work with it. And so I see some benefit there, but it has also helped me in my use of either ChatGPT or Claude or Google Gemini or Google AI Studio. I understand what those tools are actually doing behind the scenes. Even though I'm not wrestling with the actual code inside the AI, I have a model in my head about how the AI operates. And then when I'm setting up, Richie, you were talking about in the previous podcast about caching and pre-caching, that's a retrieval augmented generation architecture, right? And how to set that up in a way that's going to be beneficial, right? And even though I've had some recent issues with Google security getting in my way with the prompts, it's like I understand it enough where I can say, okay, let's pivot and let's work around it. And, so the AI courses, they definitely have some benefit.
actually have a question for you, Nubix, where you were doing the cert yourself. Do you know if these certs are still restricted to companies that are partnered? Because I know the
Well,
training's free for everyone, but I didn't think you get the certs unless you were in a partner company.
So that I'm not 100% sure. I do know from what I know that there's people who had that cert months ago, a couple months ago. I think it's just getting more publicity, so to speak. It's more public now, just because of the actual path for, through the companies or whatever as partnership. But yeah, the cert has already been out. So I don't think that you have to necessarily be part of that partnership. I just think that there's other incentives to said companies who do have individuals who have that on their resume.
so the latest information about that is you don't have to be with a company that's in the Claude Partner Network. The only benefit there is you just waive the exam fee. So the fee of $99 is waived, but other than that, it's the same for everybody.
Okay. So I thought that, is it on SkillJar, right?
Yeah, that I don't know, but I just know I remember when I first was looking over it, I saw other people had already took it, passed it, and had the cert. So I was like, and it wasn't related to some type of partnership. So, but again, like I said, I think I mean, going over some of the course material, I will definitely say it's geared more towards DevOps and engineering and architect, like all that stuff. But I mean, again, with that being said, I still think it's extremely valuable just to understand the content and material. All right. Anybody got any posts that they were looking at that they really wanted to throw on the board?
The only other thing I've got is how about that? Is that 2.5 billion gallons of water last year from Amazon's data centers?
Man, that's a lot of water.
Wait, so hold on. I think we had that. What happened?
That's what they're using to cool their data centers as they pull in local waters. Great example is
Okay.
I think it was Amazon wanted to put data centers in Nashville, Tennessee. I think it was last year. And they were wanting to pull millions of gallons out of the river there, which is a protected environment because of the species of animals that live in the water. So that created a whole fiasco and Amazon got shut down.
Yeah, I'm looking over that right now. So 2.5 billion gallons of water, 2025, 2% decrease in water usage from the year prior for the cooling. Yeah, 900 data centers in more than 50 countries as of 2025 in November. That's crazy. Google, Oregon, Google's data center. Yeah, that's crazy. And this was last year. So with the one in was that Amazon or was that who was trying to build something in Tennessee? Was it Elon?
I think it was Amazon because they have their offices in Nashville.
Okay. I feel like Elon was trying to do something in. Oh no, that was that Memphis?
I think
That's Memphis.
Yeah,
Yeah,
okay,
that's
okay, okay. Let's see.
oh, it's still ongoing.
What is that?
The Nashville thing. Nashville's still blocking data centers.
NAACP sues Elon
It looks like
over
Amazon's
AI
been trying to.
air pollution. So we got waste of water, we got pollution. Tennessee's getting hit, man.
Yeah, and the Tennessee, the XAI data center situation is very troubling. I'm very close to that, and the thing of it is, the short story is that XAI put these data centers up, and they were supposed to bring tax. They were supposed to bring jobs in exchange for tax benefits and other benefits to XAI. But people have shown that the jobs did not come, and at the same time, they're using gas turbines to power those data centers, and that residual gas is going out into the communities, and it's poisoning people, allegedly. And so it's one of those things where civil rights organizations have had to step in and try to assert the rights of people to have clean air, clean water, to have a sense of dignity, because the turbine engines, they make these sounds, and the sounds can be very grating. It could influence or impact children trying to study at night or trying to get a good night's sleep, people who have to work jobs, and just disrupting circadian rhythms, disrupting the local ecosystem. And so it really goes to the larger conversation about these data centers and what their real impact is on the Earth's ecology versus the benefit that they give to society in terms of GDP, in terms of economic development. And, I have to wince my teeth a little bit in that I love the AI, and all of us here, we are into this technology, but, that's a different conversation about the true benefit that we as humans overall are gaining from all of this speculation and talk about this technology.
Have we seen any large data centers not near water sources or in cold environments?
Everything that I have seen on data centers, I haven't seen anything like that. It's all about access to the water. And it's not just AI data centers. Also in Tennessee, I don't know if y'all know this, but Ford brought in a major, and let me say it a third time, a major EV manufacturing plant. And I'm talking about, it is humongous. It's billions of dollars. And the key to where that data center is placed in Stanton, Tennessee, it's about access to the water. And it created a real controversy with this one town called in Mason, Tennessee, a town that is ran by, a nearly all Black population who was living in relative peace for decades. But as soon as this investment came in, they were pushed out of government, and there was huge disruption. And so, with these major manufacturing and data center enterprises, we're seeing local communities being pushed to the margins and being stressed.
So even the company I work for, we have a river that runs directly through the campus. We actually have an entire section that's cleaning the water before it's put back in.
Wow.
But
is that for cooling?
Or
what is it for?
Cooling, and I don't know how much I can say there because it's part of the manufacturing process.
We'll stick with
neither confirm nor deny that.
Yeah, I got you. Let's pivot. But yeah, on that note though, I did see the $30,000 electric pickup from Ford. Any takers?
Well, I actually do think it's impressive. I'm not, I have looked at the electric Ford F-150. Marcus Brownlee on YouTube did a great breakdown of that. He got early access to that. And as terms of engineering concept, man, it's a really nice vehicle if you can really have the power to supply it, and just moving the components around where you have more, what do you call that, conveniences just in the trunk of the pickup. Man, I mean, it's nice.
It just reminds me of like the electric Hummer. Because to me, you get something like that, you go off road. You go off road in something that heavy, you're not going anywhere. Like you see do you remember like the old commercials for the Humvees and like the military Hummers, and you watching them go through this crazy terrain? Yeah, just try that in an electric Hummer.
I'm not gonna lie. I saw what was Oh, which one was it that had the crab feature where it would like, and they like focus, like that was the focal point about, like it wasn't even the fact that it was electric. It was that the truck, or it had to be like a truck, a truck or SUV, and it was like, I think was it a Hummer?
It might have been. So
I
I
gotta
think
look that up. No, I feel like it was like a Hummer or something. It would do like,
so. This can be my hot take that everybody can cancel me for, but real motors have rotors. Just throwing that out there. The Wankel engine's the way to go. I need a tech.
yes, it was the Hummer EV Crab Walk.
Yep, you crab walk right off the side of the road and then sink. Because
Yeah, the Hummer and the GMC EV Crab Walk commercial. Yeah, I remember the first time I saw that, I was like, I don't know when I would ever need that, but yeah, if I ever want to pay another $30K, I'll keep that in mind.
It's 10,500 pounds. That's how much that Hummer weighs.
That's ridiculous. I mean, okay, I was gonna actually save that for the end for this or that, but so Hummer or Cybertruck?
Gas or EV?
EV.
Oh fuck.
Yeah, I mean, we gotta at least have some type of level ground. Like,
I would go with the Hummer.
I'm gonna go with the Hummer.
Why?
Simply because I've seen everything done to destroy the Cybertruck that the Cybertruck's allegedly immune to.
So a caveat there. I was a very big fan of the Cybertruck. I liked it. I'm not a fan of its design, so to speak. But I do like like when you're in it, it's nice. And the features, of course. But the thing that really bothered me was on multiple accounts, I saw when it was in a car accident, what would happen is, like, if it was in a serious car accident, now I couldn't see it obviously, but they said that there's like these bars that like lock, so the only way you can get out is through the jaws of life. But like if there's a fire within the vehicle, then you basically just
burn alive.
Yeah. So like when I saw that multiple times, I was like, well, that can't be like, just an outlier or one off. Like, that's a safety mechanism. It just so happened from that perspective and from that point, like being that individual in that situation, not a good safety mechanism. But I can see in other situations, say you in a very rural country or part of a country, right? Even a third world country at that. And you don't want to get taken at the light. That would be a good feature, right? It would lock up. I don't know if it's just when it crashes or whatnot. If it's when like the car is locked or driving or what have you. But I mean, I could see where that would come into play. But when you're on 101 highway and you get a minor car accident, but for whatever reason something's burning because you have a fully working battery in your car that is half the size of the car, might not be the perfect spot for that. But yeah, so that kind of took me away from the Cybertruck. So I probably have to go with the Hummer. I haven't heard any stories or seen anything in that regard.
See, I think my upbringing just has me. I like the concept of EV vehicles, but there's just something about like growing up with an uncle in a custom shop, getting to hear like fucking these really nice engines revving out, and then you hear the turbo blowing off. That sound, it's nothing like it. And then you get an EV car, and it's
maybe I'm just getting old, man. Like I was just talking about the other day. I was like, I loved like the hum of the spaceship, I call it, with the electric vehicle. I mean, I don't know. I think it's obviously your own choice. But with that being said, I will say my first car ever was a 5.0 Mustang Fox body. So, gather what you will from that.
My first car was a K20 swap Civic turbo.
Yeah, I can't even remember what my first car was. It was so long ago.
But see, you can't tell me that your electric hum is going to sound like a GTR with anti-turbo lag.
Yeah, negative. That's out of. Like, I feel like when you do that, when you make that move, when you go for the EV, like you should be able to like you hang your your jacket up, so to speak, right? Like unless you one of those people who like to keep one foot in on each side, then you depending on the day and how you feel, you might put that jacket back on and take the Mustang out. But again, like at this point in my life, I'm just like I just need to get to point A to point B. And with gas prices as high as they are currently, and then like who knows what it's going to be 6 months down the line from now, so like I think it's the safe bet for me, and I like it. But again, I can't wait for like 10 years down the line to see what the EV cars are going to be like.
That's what the motorcycle's for, fuel mileage.
Yeah, I'll hold out for the Star Trek vision because, I grew up with a heavy physics education and a heavy dose of sci-fi diet. And so I'm waiting for them to repave all the streets in the United States with semiconductor material. And we can have hover cars that also has a built-in little nuclear reactor that is safe and that will perpetually power the cars and give us a little bit of lift capability so we can now climb to a higher altitude and get to our destination faster.
Okay, I think that as a great segue into cyberpunk. I feel like at least on one of these episodes we got to bring that up. I don't know how big it is in any of you guys' life, but it's extremely big in my life. And I'm still currently waiting for the second season of Edge Runners. So
Blade Runner.
What was that?
Blade Runner.
Oh. Okay, Blade Runner. Which one?
The original. It's from that opening scene, that opening crawl, and the initial scene with the what do you call that? The neo-futuristic chopped pyramid, and just the whole feel of it, And I think the Matrix, the first Matrix movie, was still in that vein. So tracing from Blade Runner to the first Matrix, I think there was some good set of movies within that span of time that really channeled that cyberpunk ethos.
The Animatrix, if you hadn't watched those.
Oh yes,
because that's literally AI. That is the time we live in.
my thing about it is, I actually went back and watched the first one, and the thing that really got my attention was it was just different, right? Like it had that old school. Like if you look at a lot of old school movies, like you look at them now, it's like I don't know if because we're so used to the new imaging and everything that's going on, like your brain has to like slow down and watch it. But even though it's an older movie, it still was it was very put together, right? Like as well as Tron. Like I don't know so much about the first Tron, but like the one right after that, or the one that was after that, I really liked it. And then the new one was kind of like, I don't know, it was weird. I didn't feel the same way about it.
Yeah, Tron Ares, the latest one, it wasn't really in that same vibe, So the first Tron, yeah, that is all, you are really in the computer, and you could see it had a more optimistic way about it towards the end, right? And then the second Tron was kind of in that vein. Tron Legacy had a really good vibe to it, but yeah, I can see where you could go with that.
It's kind of like if you look at the first Matrix, right? Second Matrix for me was like, okay. And the third was like, okay. And then this last one, I was just like, I'm good, man. Like you should have just stopped. I didn't really enjoy. I enjoyed the fact that they they brought so much of that nostalgia from the first and even the second and third episode. Second and third movies, but like the overall feel of it was just it didn't really feel to me like
Wait for
the
the next
original
one.
Matrix.
And I could see where they were going with the fourth one, just my own interpretation. They're trying to express the Union, Carl Jung, the Union archetypes and the Union type of perspective juxtaposed with technology, and how that frames in our modern times, and how people are much more, what you call that, jaded, much more detached, much more skeptical about a range of things compared to like the first Matrix, where there were still those elements of aspiration, right? That you can control the machine, that you can take sovereignty, that you can overcome the system and what is trying to be impressed upon you. Whereas the fourth one is the total opposite of that, where it's like the system always wins in some way, and everything is some kind of gaslight, hijack of your senses and sensibilities.
So there's actually a YouTube channel that does Matrix theories. And I think the best theory for the Matrix is even the people who released on Zion are still under control. So you don't actually leave the Matrix. Because one of the things the architect says in the Matrix is we've destroyed it so many times before.
That's right.
We've become efficient at it. So it's just another form of control. They're not actually free.
It's just degrees of freedom, and which degrees of freedom are you most comfortable in?
It goes back to the previous episode where we were talking about the education system. You teach somebody to read and write, suddenly they're less likely to rebel. So you give them a little bit of freedom, and suddenly they're back in control.
That's correct.
Yeah, modern day bread and circus, right?
It's like the person that has nothing to lose is the most dangerous. But as soon as you give them a job and an income and a steady lifestyle to some extent, then yes, you can maintain much scope over their life.
Suddenly they don't want to take risks anymore.
Exactly.
They got to play safe.
I feel that right there is kind of like the crossing of the Rubicon, right? Because it kind of takes on a form of a virus, so to speak, right? Where it's either takes over the host, or the host finds a way to cleverly get rid of it. It's very interesting because on one side of the coin you have, just as you said, like you provide a opportunity for an individual to better themselves, and they start acquiring money, which allows them to leverage that and get all the things that they never had but they wanted. And then on the other side of that, you still give all this individual all these things, but they can't conform, right? They can't turn over that leaf. They can't align with what you expect from them, right? Or it just won't budge. And now you fall into a situation where this individual had everything and rebelled, decide to, I can't do it, and go back to whatever or wherever they came from. So like, I definitely see that. And as I look at it from the Matrix perspective, like, where you have an individual, even Neo, right? Like in the beginning, he was like, yeah, no, it's not me, right? But eventually, he went with what they said his role was. So I think it's there's two sides to that coin.
So let me put this thought in your head. So I think it was in Reloaded when they go to meet the broker, and he's talking to Neo when they're sitting in the restaurant, and Neo's watching the girl eat I think it was cake or cheesecake.
Yeah,
and
chocolate cake provided
it
by
reprogrammed something in her. So
Yes.
then we go back previously. Neo ate the cookie that the Oracle gave him. Neo also ate the candy that she gave him. So what if Neo wasn't actually the one? What if she was just programming?
Well, throughout the dialogues between the two movies, it was implied. And it was implied in terms of her relationship to the architect, right? And what her and his original role was, and as well as the Merovingian, the gentleman that was orchestrating things in the restaurant. And so There's a lot of philosophy woven into the Matrix, and I liken it all back to Gnostic Christianity. I don't know how familiar you are with Gnosticism, but it's the idea that there was this source that is beyond all things physical and manifest, beyond thoughts, beyond experience, beyond consciousness itself. And then there was this group of beings called the Pleroma, who are the embodiments of joy, happiness, goodness, peace, truth, justice, as well as wisdom. Well, the embodiment of wisdom tried to create on her own without her masculine counterpart, and in so doing created an abomination that's called a demiurge, which you could liken to the machine god in the Matrix. And this demiurge thinks it's the sole deity, and it's trying to like create this matrix. But if you read into that, you got the matrix of the demiurge, the false god. And then if you're able to get out, if you're able to escape that, right? Because they provide a password in ancient literature how you can escape that. Once you escape that, you're now in the realm of the Pleroma, but that's its own matrix. So then if you escape that, then you connect with the source. You're now in a different type of matrix. So it's like the whole blueprint of reality is almost one layer cake of matrices atop of another.
I'm not saying aliens, but aliens.
I think you said aliens.
Cat loves aliens, so I randomly hear about aliens all the time.
All right. So, what are you guys' choice as far as like Podmon, Docker, Kubernetes? Like, what do you guys usually like going with?
Well, I'm automatically without reservation going to advise people towards Podmon.
I probably use Docker more than anything, but I like to play with Kubernetes because Kubernetes clusters are just fun to me. I actually haven't used Podmon much.
Yeah, I mean, to me, I feel like it's all preference, right? Obviously, some of them they're gonna have their drawbacks, and they're gonna have their pros, but at the end of the day, like it's all preference. And then, of course, what architecture you're going with. I started off with Docker. I actually pivoted to Podmon because Docker was giving me issues on this one thing or what have you. Moved to Podmon and just been running with it ever since. So I always like to ask that question just to kind of see what type of infrastructure individuals like to roll with.
Just got to get a bunch of pies and put them together so you get yourself a pi Kubernetes clusters.
Exactly. And how is your stuff going, sir? Actually, your
you have to be more specific. Which one? Because I've got
your main project. What I always forget the name of it. What is it?
The CSI and
yeah,
VFI,
yeah.
So actually I'm waiting on my newest NIC card to come in because I've reverse engineered 2 of them and hit firmware walls, and then checked with Intel, and both of them are signed, and they're saying no, so I can't push past that without legal issues. So I went to the last known available one that we can crack the firmware on, which is like the AX200, and then I'll be continuing from there. But something that I did do was I found out that WIDS actually does not detect on the CSI layer of so if you're doing an active ping doing it, WIDS won't actually pick that up unless you're hitting their AP. So as long as you don't hit the network, it won't track it as a rogue device. So I actually got to play with detection scenarios for that. It was pretty neat. Still working on that in the lab right now. Second, I thought you were going to talk about my weird ass OSINT pipeline.
Oh, see, you spoke up too soon. That was next. Go ahead.
I've got 2 AI pipelines I'm building. One's an OSINT/GeoInt pipeline, where that automatically pulls in a bunch of SIGINT stuff and visualizes it on top of the OSINT for it. And the thought process there is I can give it coordinates or somebody's name, and it'll pull all of their information. If I give it coordinates, it'll start pulling in camera feeds for that location so that I get the geo-int, so I can track the flights and everything through that area. The pipeline for the red team thing, I'm actually running into issues on right now because I swapped to DeepSeek and DeepHat together. So I'm running into a weird loop issue on the enumeration cycle. And I'm working on figuring that out because I'm pretty sure that it's just in the prompt itself, and I haven't had enough sleep to figure it out.
More caffeine, less sleep.
Well, I started that after I got asked to write the research paper on Fable yesterday, and hadn't really slept much since then because I stayed up all night writing that. So, yeah. And then I
How is that coming? Are you
Monday.
already finished, or are you still working on it?
That one's finished, the authorization and access control issues. It actually started out as an entirely different paper, but the more that I looked at breaches and the white papers released on it, the more my thought process changed, and then it just turned into this massively long 12-page or something research white paper of it'll put you to sleep. But it's more neutral than me just complaining. So.
Those are good though. You know, I mean, like you gotta have that kind of dryness, man. It keeps the blood alive, right? Keeps the spirit young, right?
Authorization should not be baked into a model. I'm sorry, it should be handled externally. You'll never be able to convince me otherwise.
All right, we got about 8 minutes. Any last topics you guys want to go over?
Well, I found a very interesting discussion about a concept called the Ralph Wiggum loop. I don't know if y'all heard about that. It's kind of old. It's about a year old, but apparently there's this technique that made this guy really rich. But it's a very simple idea. You take a while loop, and in the middle of this while loop, you have your AI read the same prompt markdown file, and it just runs through this markdown file over and over and over again until infinity. And each turn, it's basically starting its context fresh, but the outputs that it generated from the previous run is on the file system. So that allows you to evolve the project that you're working on somewhat rapidly. And you probably heard about Anthropic creating the clone of a C compiler based off of GCC. They use this Ralph Wiggum loop approach to do that, where they had a loop basically run for 2 weeks. Imagine a while loop just running for 2 weeks straight on servers, and it's basically you're spending $20,000 or the equivalent of $20,000, and you're able to just create this massively complex software as a result of that. And so but that's the core idea, is being able to, and I just found out about that yesterday, but it turned out that some of the software projects that I've been doing through AI, where I've had some great success, I used a variation of this unknowingly.
Nice. Is this the one from July 2025, Jeffrey Huntley?
That's correct.
Okay.
Kind of neat because I like to bounce my projects between models and have them compete over efficiency. So it's conceptually very similar.
I just like when they box, I mean, to speak to this, right? So I don't know if you ever did this, but I want to say maybe 2022 or 3, I had the Echo Dot, and I had it was another Amazon product. It was the one that you have a little miniature display on it, and you can touchscreen and all that, but it's just like a dot. I just don't know what it's called, but
Echo Show.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I would have them I would say, "Hey, Alexa, blah blah blah," and they would like just talk back to each other, and I would see how long I could do that for. I think the 12 or 13, like back and forth, was my record, so to speak. But that's what that made me think of when you said that. That's pretty cool.
So here's your idea. Do you like battle bots? So what you do is you take an Arduino and make a tiny battle bot. You make two of them that are identical. And then you loop like your AI, so like ChatGPT, and then you loop Claude, have them do a reinforcement learning setup for that Arduino car to fight each other, and then you can actually make them fight.
But like, do you remember Sock and Boppers?
I do. That's what actually made me think of that. It was like, I want these AIs to walk into a ring and fight each other. See, we should do this for Hack Myrtle.
Yeah, 100%, man.
Have three AI cars just going at it.
I like that. I like that. We're gonna have to write that down. Um, let's see. We got about 4 minutes, 3 minutes. All right, we got one more quick topic, and then we'll knock it off with a X or Z, X or Y, whatever I called it 2-3 episodes ago. Any other topic?
Give us our wellness tip for the day, Michael, because people are getting laid off.
Nice.
We need the mental health for people.
Well, it's just going to come back to that you cannot seek external validation and expect to be healthy in mind and spirit, and that your true success comes from within, right? So that's the hardest advice I give anybody, whether it's people that are related to me, people that are close friends to me. The central advice and the central perspective is you got to look deep inside yourself, because when you lose a job, let's say you are a red team lead or a blue team lead, software lead, whatever, and you've been on that job 5-10 years, and then all of a sudden you lose that job, and it's going to take you 2 years, 5 years to find another job like that, if ever. Well, here's the problem: is your identity is trapped all in that job role, that job position, that industry. And if you never find that role again, then you could be absolutely crushed as a person. But the truth is that you have value just by virtue of being alive, by being a human being. And you have to remember that your right to this earth and to this existence is the fact that you were born and that you live and you breathe. And so these things that we talk about today, they're very important, they're useful, they're good things, but they're not the meaning of life. The meaning of life is you yourself. And so that's what we want to really, at least that's what I would advise you to look at your technology projects in terms of, how does it work in that way? How does it bring life back to you and create life, right? And so that's the error that the big tech CEOs are making. They're not looking at life. They're looking at consumption. They're looking at other things. So let's not be like them. Let's be ourselves. Let's be true humans. And then I have one more piece of tech advice, and that is something that I learned here recently. When you're working with this AI, the most important thing that you can have is test data from whatever it can output. Test data from whatever you need it to run. And then you feed that test data back to it. It will actually figure out the corrections without you actually having to ask a follow-up prompt.
Nice. Thank you for that on both fronts. With that being said, really quick, again, Hack Myrtle, mid-November. More details will come after DEF CON. And then on the other side, 4Sec, we want to keep the Gen 1, Gen 2 idea alive. That's all it is. And we want to help shape the next generation of hackers. Outside of that, we're going to, we'll kick it off, or we'll end it with X or Y, X or Z. I forgot what I called it. This or that. We'll just stick with that. So for tonight, this is something that I wanted to do because it hits home. These are we're talking about good people and just, life and all that good stuff. If you guys don't know who these people are, you should know, and you will know by the end of this call. One of them I might terrorize his name, so forgive me. But So the first one will be Mike Ponsman. I don't know if you guys know who that individual is, but Cyberpunk, was it Dungeon and Dragons and some other stuff, and then also, and the other person is Kuzunori Yamuchi, the individual who created Gran Turismo. So Mike Ponsman or Kuzunori.
I'm going to go with Dungeons and Dragons.
Have to see. This is really hard for me because growing up, I was involved in automotive super hard as a child. Oh, Gran Turismo was like my life. But I think it would have to go with Posman too.
Same. Okay. And this was really hard. I wanted to try to bring something that was gonna, the Steve Jobs, Steve Wozniak, all that stuff. Like this hit home because like, dude, I grew up, I didn't play Dungeons and Dragons. It was Gran Turismo all the time, all day, every day. That was when I wasn't playing like Killer Instinct or Tekken or something like that. It was that. But I don't know, man. Mike Ponsman, it just hit home because obviously Cyberpunk, I think, is a masterpiece. Not saying Gran Turismo isn't, but like whole nother level. But yeah, I wanted that to be fun. I wanted it to be cool. And then for those of you who don't know who that is, man, go look both of them up. They're both outstanding individuals, and another part of history. So with that being said, thank you guys for coming out. Again, as always, stay positive, stay on the right track, man. And hey, break, tinker, build, and just stay hungry. Hack the planet. See you guys.
Peace.